Arsenal have contacted PSG regarding a potential loan move for Xavi Simons. We'll also be talking about Sporting and Brentford, who have not budged in terms of price for both Gyökeres and Tony. We'll also be covering the latest on the Girona strike and also Reece Nelson. But first, Cozy, how are you?
I'm absolutely fine. Football is going on like I expected. The Euros are really giving us the good vibes. In terms of transfers, I'm not really satisfied with what's going on, but I'm hopeful things are really going to start happening at least in the next week. So for now, I'm okay. I'm hopeful that things will unfold. I'm probably a little bit desperate that we have not seen some of the big leaks, some of the big breaking news, but still thinking that it's going to happen. Still think that Arsenal will not disappoint this summer.
I'm not worried at all. It's still too early in the transfer window, just literally 3 days into the transfer window. There's a reason why it's 3 months. They could easily have had it in terms of 1 week for the whole transfer window if people were like really in a rush. But there's a lot of time and not too many teams have done any business. But first, let's start with Xavi Simons. Listen, we might have to get a couple of players on loan. I'm not a fan of loan deals because usually says he's not a fan of Arsenal players going out on loan and coming back. Now, for me, I'm not a big fan of getting players on loan, although I think Odegaard kind of worked and Sabas kind of helped us win the FA Cup, but not many times. Now, what's the latest on Xavi Simons? According to reports from L'Equipe, Arsenal, Bayern, Manchester United and Man City have contacted PSG over a potential sale of Xavi Simons. Paris will not sell the player this summer as a big part of the fee would go to PSV if Simons is sold before January 2025. The most likely option this summer is a loan move. The player will have the final say on his next club. So basically, we've contacted them to buy the player, but PSG want to loan him out, or the best option for them is to loan him out. So Xavi Simons has been around a lot of teams recently. He was initially a PSG player, and then a year later he was sold to PSV. He had a very good season with PSV, and then I think PSG had a buyback clause in their contract. They bought him back a year later, and then they sent him out on loan to Leipzig. We wanted him at that time as well. We didn't really get him, and now again he's going to head back to PSG. But it seems like PSG don't want him. So that's the first question, Cozy. Why do you think PSG are not interested in keeping him? The last 2-3 years, they've been desperate in terms of letting him go.
Yeah, well, I think there's no question about his talent. There's no question about his quality. He's a very, very quality player, and he has proven that he's capable of doing it at the big stage. At the Euros this year, if you've got a chance to watch the Netherlands, you'll have seen him, and of course at PSV and Leipzig as well. But I think with PSV, at PSG, there's a lot of talent, especially in the wide areas, and there's been a lot of congestion there. You've had Kylian Mbappe there, then you've had the likes of Dembele, coming back, from FC Barcelona. You have the likes of the young players, of course, the likes of Zaire Emery, who can play midfield also on that forward line. So it's a little bit congested, and I think it's about Xavi Simons and it's about his entourage rather than PSG. Like again this summer, it's about him, the player. It's about him to decide whether he stays at PSG or he goes out on another loan deal or he leaves the club. Now, first he decided to go to PSV because he felt like he wouldn't really shine with the likes of Kylian Mbappe in that team. He thought maybe moving on for one season would be the best option. Then he was sold to PSV. When he was brought back, in that summer, you will remember, that is when PSG actually brought back Dembele. They also signed 2 strikers. One, Colin Mwani, who can play in wide areas, also as a center forward, and then Goncalo Ramos. And then Kylian Mbappe was still there as well. So he decided to go to RB Leipzig on loan. Coming back at the moment, we don't know what his decision is going to be. He's still at the Euros. We don't know whether his decision is going to be, I want to stay at PSG and fight for my place, or he's going to say, I want to go somewhere else and play football. But deep in my heart, I know PSG know how good he is. Maybe it's about the manager, maybe it's about the player not being 100% sold onto the project, but there's nothing on his quality. He's absolutely a quality player.
Now, he can obviously play predominantly as an attacking midfielder. He can also play on the left wing sometimes, right wing sometimes. His numbers at PSV are really good. I think he played around 34 games and scored 19 goals in the league that season. I don't think they won the league, but he was really, really good for them that season. And this season at Leipzig, the few times I've been able to watch him in the Champions League, Leipzig fans always talk well about him. I scored 8 goals in the league this season for RB Leipzig. And it wasn't the best season for them, but as always, they usually score goals. His combination with them, Openda was really good with Sesko as well, a player that you wanted a couple of weeks ago.
And of really course, we've been talking about Sesko for a whole summer now. Not a whole summer, but a whole 2 months. It's also very, very good to remember that Xavi Simons is the player that has been keeping Benjamin Sesko out of the starting 11 at RB Leipzig. So that is a very important point as we discuss his future.
Yeah, so he got 8 goals and 11 assists this season, which is a really good return. That was just in the Bundesliga. And he also got 2 goals and 2 assists in the Champions League. So some good returns there. And over at PSV, the previous season, he scored 19 goals and had 8 assists. So those are really, really good numbers. Now, Arsenal one team, Man United one team, who's the other team? Bayern Munich one team, and also the Manchester clubs, and basically Arsenal. So are you keen on getting this player? And if you're to get him, which one would you be trying to do first? A loan deal or trying to buy him?
Well, I think we are trying to get a midfielder. We are also trying to get a winger, and we are working on a limited budget. Not limited in terms of very small, but limited in terms of Arsenal are not going to just go out there and splash the cash. So probably a loan deal for such a player is absolutely wise and absolutely very, very, economically, prudent. So when you think about the quality of players of clubs that are really in him, like Bayern are interested to get him away from PSG, by the way. Leipzig want him back. City have been linked together with Manchester United. So I would definitely give him a try. And it's a player that Arsenal have wanted even before he went out on loan to RB Leipzig last summer. Again, Arsenal were there trying to see if they could sign him. We were linked with him.
Was it before we got Havertz?
Yeah, before we got Havertz. Exactly. And again, we were linked with him before he went to PSV the previous summer. So that shows you that Arsenal have looked at him for quite some time. And there is a player in there. Now, for us, we are lucky or unlucky for this case that we have played against him at PSV and we know his wrath and we know his quality and we know what he can do both in midfield and attack. It's one of the things I like about him. Like, he reminds me of Dusan Tadic. He can play in that midfield line very, very well. And you think predominantly he's a very good midfielder. But when he plays on that forward line, when he plays up top, he is quality, bro. He's absolute quality. You've just talked about his numbers at PSV. 19. And by that time, I mean, people might think we're talking about a prime 27-year-old, 25-year-old, or 26-year-old. We're still talking about one of the very, very young players, one of the very young prospects,
21.
21 in European football. So we're not talking about, as we praise Jude Bellingham, as we praise Phil Foden, we're talking about a player in that bracket, in that category. So I'll be eager to bring him at Arsenal. I don't want to lie. I think with Xavi Simons, whoever is going to sign him should sign him on a permanent. I don't know how you convince PSG to get him to you on a permanent, but it should be permanent. The reason is I see him as a player that's going to have a breakout season very, very soon. And when I say breakout season, I'm not saying his last 2 seasons have not been good. They've been absolutely brilliant. But if he goes to a club like Bayern, if he goes to a club like Man United, he's going to have a breakout season. Imagine Odegaard having the season he had last season, but one, where he's got 15 goals and he is on loan. You're panicking. You're literally panicking. You're like, what do we do? What if Madrid refuse to sell? What if Madrid want to sell to someone who has more money, to the highest bidder? So for me, I would love to sign him, but on a permanent. We've been talking about Arsenal not having that Odegaard cover. That is your Odegaard cover. Xavi Simons is your Odegaard cover. And again, with Declan Rice, you can rotate him a little bit in games where you don't have to heavily defend. Xavi Simons can come in that role. We know he scores goals from midfield. We know he scores goals, in all types of calibers and all kinds of types. So I would definitely be looking to bring him in. But a loan deal wouldn't be bad. I mean, it's the terms and conditions. I think PSG will be looking to do it in this way. If we can get him on a loan deal away from the club right now. We don't pay a lot of money to PSV in the, when we sell him. So you can sign him on a loan deal with probably an option to buy, and that option should be serviceable, the way that we did with David Raya. Arsenal knew that whatever happens, as long as David Raya performs to the full expectation, we are going to pay that 27 million. Actually, I was seeing Arsenal's Twitter handle. They actually they were congratulating Raya for going to the Euros, and I'm like, is he our player already, really? We have not seen the official announcement, but you get what I'm talking about. So I think it should be a serviceable, obligation to buy or option to buy, so that Arsenal don't just get him, give him a breakout season, and then we are used. But I'll definitely be looking to bring him at Arsenal. Midfielder, winger, forward, you can name it. There is a player there.
Yeah, strong at dribbling, strong at finishing his passes. So he's and the way we've talked about him being at all those clubs, it seems like he's 24, 25 already, but he's only 21, and 21. He just turned 21 like 2 months ago. So he's been going all around those teams, 18, 19. And you mentioned the game that he played against us. I remember that game because I think it was him, Gakpo, and Madueke. Before Madueke moved to Chelsea, there were the three of them, I think, playing up front when he went to PSV, and they beat us in the Europa League. So they're a very good team, and Xavi Simons was one of the players in that team, and he's been great since then, but seems like PSG are still trying to get rid of him. So if we end up buying him and they say, okay, Kozi, interested in Xavi Simons, 55 million.
Well, the price is going to be a little bit tricky. Very, very tricky. I wouldn't pay 55 million pounds for him, but I would go close to 45 million euros. I think that is the real price tag. Now, the problem PSV have is that they've given him out on a couple of loan deals, and he's really not played for them. So they are not really 100% sure that he stays and he plays under, Unai Emery. I don't think that Unai Emery is looking to build his team around him or to include him there. So they're most likely looking at him as a player they can move on for some kind of profit. So 55 million, that's a little bit too much. 50 million euros, maybe you could you could talk about it, but most likely 45 million euros. That's where I would be thinking. I mean, I'll be looking at it like the Odegaard deal. One that you pick up on a bargain, but deep down you've done your scouting, you've done your research, you've done your homework. You know this guy is gonna come good. You know this guy is going to be a superstar. You just steal him for 35, 40 million euros, and then you run. So for me, it would be 40 to 45 million euros, not to disrespect PSG. I think they know also that they have gold. They know also that they've got, a talent. Imagine sending a player to the Dutch Eredivisie, brilliant. You send him to the German Bundesliga, he's brilliant. You've got to stop, pause, and you're like, if we were valuing him at 30 million euros, this guy is 10 million euros more, or even 20 million euros more. But I think, when I think about the clubs that are trying to sign him, who is going to sign him for 50 million euros? I don't think Arsenal, I don't think Bayern are going to sign him for 50 million euros. City, no. United, no. So that's the advantage there. And I think among all the clubs that are really interested in him, the one club that might actually go out of their line and say, we are going to bid first, or we are going to make an offer first, would be Arsenal, because we are the ones looking for an attacking midfielder, and we are the ones looking to bolster our attacking options, now with Šeško not coming in. So I think this would be a deal where Arsenal have to set the pace and many clubs follow. That's why I'm saying 55 million euros, not really. If Arsenal say he's not worth 55 million euros, I don't see anyone like going, wow, we'll pay 60 million euros for him. I don't see that happen.